Cowboy's Christmas wish came true when she rode into town. The wind cut through the icy streets of Red Spire Outpost like a sharp knife. Snowflakes swirled in the dim glow of neon lamps, reflecting off the metal roofs and dusty grav bike tracks that led to the town square. Most of the townsfolk were inside, keeping warm by the heaters in their small homes or in the tavern, where the smell of fried protein and roasted spices filled the air. Jace Callahan rode alone, his long brown coat flapping behind him like a banner in the wind. His grav bike hummed quietly beneath him, its anti-grav engines making soft noises as it hovered just above the snow-covered ground. He had been riding these asteroid towns for years, taking jobs, hunting bounties, and always staying a few steps ahead of trouble. But this Christmas something felt different. The usual emptiness gnawed at him. He dismounted in front of the general store, pulling his scarf tight around his face. Red Spire was quiet, quieter than usual. Even for a frontier town on the edge of the galaxy, this silence felt wrong. Jace glanced at the horizon. The twin suns were dipping low behind the craters, casting long shadows across the icy plains. "Too quiet," he muttered, his voice muffled by the scarf. "Something's coming." He pushed his grab bike toward the town square, boots crunching in the frozen snow. The square was empty except for a few crates and barrels left from the last supply shipment. Jace's eyes scanned every alley, every roof. Every corner felt alive with anticipation, like the town itself was holding its breath. Then, without warning, a streak of light blazed across the sky. It wasn't a comet, Jace knew the difference, but something small, fast, and deliberate. The streak slowed as it approached the square, growing brighter and revealing a figure riding what looked like a hovering silver steed. Jace's hand went to the blaster on his hip, but curiosity froze him in place. The rider landed softly, snow spraying up in tiny diamonds around the hooves of her machine. She wore armor that shimmered in the fading sunlight, reflecting hues of blue and silver. Her helmet glinted, hiding her face, but even through the visor, Jace could feel the weight of her presence, commanding, confident, and almost otherworldly. She dismounted with a grace that seemed impossible, the snow crunching under her boots. From her wrist, a small holographic emblem flickered, projecting a message in glowing letters. "Help us stop the marauders, or this Christmas will burn forever." "Well, that's a hell of a way to start a conversation," he muttered under his breath. The stranger looked around, scanning the empty streets as if measuring danger. She finally lowered the visor, revealing a face framed by dark hair streaked with silver. Her eyes were sharp yet warm, like twin stars cutting through the darkness. "You Jace Callahan?" she asked, her voice steady but carrying a hint of urgency. Jace gave a short nod. "Depends on who's asking. And what they want?" "I'm Kyla," she said. "I come from the stars beyond this asteroid. I need your help. Red Spire Outpost isn't safe. My people are being hunted by a gang called the Razor Comet Marauders. They'll strike here next. I can't stop them alone." Jace took a step back, studying her carefully. He had heard plenty of wild claims in his lifetime, but something in Kayla's eyes told him she wasn't lying. Maybe it was her calm determination, or maybe it was the strange hum of energy that radiated from her armor. Either way, he felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "Razor Comet Marauders," he said slowly. "I've heard whispers. Space pirates with a taste for chaos. They hit small towns, steal supplies, and leave destruction in their wake. You're telling me they're coming here for what? You?" "Not just me. The town. Red Spire sits on a resource line. Minerals, water, energy, it's all valuable. They want it, and they don't care who gets hurt. You know what they do to people who resist." Jace's jaw tightened. Memories of lost friends and burned-out towns flickered in his mind. He had always kept his distance, always kept his heart shielded, but the way Kayla spoke, it felt personal. It felt like someone else understood the risk, the cost, and yet chose to act anyway. "I'm not running," Jace said finally, "but I don't work for free." "You got a plan, or are we just standing here watching the snow fall?" Kayla smiled faintly, almost amused. "We have a plan, but we'll need more than weapons. We'll need the town to fight with us." Jace rubbed his chin. Recruiting Red Spire Outpost would be tricky. They were miners, traders, and settlers, not soldiers. But he liked a challenge. He liked solving impossible problems. And for some reason, he didn't want to let this stranger face the marauders alone. "All right," he said. "We start tonight. We prepare the town, set up defenses, and if they come, we hit them hard." Kayla nodded. "Good. We don't have much time. They're already in orbit, watching. You can feel it, can't you?" Jace felt a shiver run down his spine. Something in the air, electric, heavy, tense, warned him that this Christmas wouldn't be quiet. Not for anyone. Together they moved through the town, checking the defenses and speaking quietly with the few townsfolk brave enough to be out in the cold. Jace noticed how the people's eyes lingered on Kayla, not just with curiosity, but awe. Something about her radiated confidence and power, a strange mix of alien technology and frontier grit. By the time they finished their rounds, the sun had fully dipped behind the asteroid ridge, leaving the town bathed in the eerie glow of artificial lights and distant stars. Jace and Kayla paused in the center of the square, their breath steaming in the cold air. "You ride well," Jace said, nodding toward her hover steed. "Not many can handle those without tipping over." "You'd be surprised. Not many handle this town without tipping over either." The humor eased some of the tension, though. Neither of them could shake the feeling that something big was coming. A shadow passed over the square, quick and silent. Jace's hand instinctively went to his blaster, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. Still, the warning lingered. "This is it," Kayla said quietly. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Jace looked at her, at the strange, glowing armor, the determination in her eyes, the hum of energy around her, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of hope that maybe this Christmas, his wish, long whispered to the empty stars, might finally come true. As night settled over Red Spire Outpost, the twin suns of the distant system cast faint light on the snow, giving it a silvery glow. Grav bikes rested in the square, holoscreens flickered with blinking lights, and the quiet town waited, unknowingly, for the storm to come. Jace pulled his coat tighter, his eyes scanning the horizon once more. Somewhere out there, the Razor Comet marauders were circling, ready to strike. But this time, he wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would be different. Kayla adjusted her helmet, her hand brushing over the holographic controls on her wrist. "We ride at first light," she said. "They won't know what hit them." Jace nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips.
"First light it is. And Kayla, thanks for finding me."
She tilted her head slightly, and for a moment the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter. "The universe has a way of answering wishes," she said. And as the snow fell softly over Red Spire Outpost, Jace felt it deep in his chest. Maybe this year, his Christmas wish wasn't just a whisper in the dark. Maybe it had come true. Morning arrived over Red Spire Outpost with a pale, icy glow. The twin suns, just peeking over the ridges of the asteroid, gave the snow a silvery shimmer, as if the town itself had been dusted with stardust. Jace Callahan was already awake, sitting atop his grav bike outside the tavern. The wind whipped his coat around him, carrying the faint scent of roasted protein from inside. His mind was restless. The events of last night, the strange rider, the cryptic warning, it all weighed heavily on him. Kayla joined him silently, stepping from the shadows with her hover steed hovering lightly beside her. Her armor reflected the early sunlight, and her eyes were sharp and focused. "Morning already," Jace muttered, rubbing his face. "Feels like the night barely passed." Kayla tilted her head. "Night passes fast when danger is close. We need to move. The marauders are patient. They wait, watch, and strike when we least expect it." Jace nodded, pushing his grav bike into motion. "All right, let's get to work." Their first task was preparing Red Spire Outpost. Though small, the town had a network of alleys, rooftops, and storage sheds that could serve as defensive points. Jace moved quickly, giving instructions to the townsfolk who were starting to wake. Farmers, traders, and miners emerged cautiously, their curiosity and fear visible in their eyes. "This ain't a drill," Jace called, his voice carrying through the crisp air. "We've got visitors coming who don't play fair. We need everyone to know their role. Hold your ground, protect your homes, and don't take unnecessary risks." The townsfolk nodded, some eager, some hesitant. Kayla moved among them as well, her presence commanding respect. She demonstrated how to use the energy lassos and grav cannons mounted on the rooftops, explaining in simple terms how they worked. One young miner, barely 16, fumbled with a small grav cannon. I don't know if I can do this," he stammered. Kayla knelt beside him, her voice calm and reassuring. "You can. You just need to trust the machine and trust yourself. You're stronger than you think." Jace watched her, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. There was something about her, the way she inspired courage even in fear. It was a gift, and he hadn't seen it in anyone before. By mid-morning, the town was alive with preparation. Grav cannons were tested, rooftops reinforced, and improvised barricades set up in narrow alleyways. Kayla and Jace moved together, their steps in sync, occasionally exchanging brief words about strategy, or simply sharing a glance that spoke more than words could. "You ride well for someone who's used to walking," Jace said as they climbed a ridge overlooking the main square. Kayla smirked. "And you shoot well for someone who's been out here too long? Don't underestimate the quiet ones." Jace chuckled, though a part of him remained cautious. Trust was not easy for him. He had been betrayed too many times, lost too many friends to the cold vastness of space. But Kayla, she was different. As the sun climbed higher, a signal interrupted the town's work. A small drone, sleek and black, zipped across the sky. Kayla's eyes narrowed. "They're already scouting," she said. "The Marauders know we're awake and preparing. They're testing us, seeing what we've got." Jace's hand went to his blaster instinctively. Looks like the fun starts early. Kayla activated her wrist console, sending out pulses of energy that interfered with the drone's sensors. The machine wobbled, then crashed into the snow, harmless but sending a clear message. "They'll come harder," Kayla warned. "They don't give up easily." The rest of the day passed in a tense rhythm. Jace and Kayla moved through the town, checking barricades, helping townsfolk adjust weapons, and improvising new defensive strategies. The townsfolk, once hesitant, began to find courage in themselves. Some even joked quietly, trying to ease the tension, but Jace noticed how sharp their eyes remained, how ready their hands were. By afternoon, the first hints of attack appeared. Shadows moved in the distant craters, fleeting but unmistakable. Kayla pointed toward them. "Razor Comet scouts," she said. "They're watching from afar, probably hoping we'll get careless." Well, we're not careless. Not today. The rest of the afternoon was spent in drills and brief rests. Jace and Kayla shared a rare moment of quiet near the center of town. The snow had stopped, leaving the streets sparkling under the twin suns. "You ever wish things were different?" Kayla asked, breaking the silence. Jace looked at her, thoughtful. "Every Christmas, every year out here. It's a lonely life. Most folks don't understand, or they don't care." Kayla's eyes softened. "Maybe that's why you ride alone. But you don't have to this time. Not if you don't want to." Jace wanted to answer, but he didn't. Not yet. Trust was earned in his world, not given freely. Still, a flicker of something unfamiliar, hope, perhaps, began to grow in his chest. Night approached, and Red Spire Outpost became a hive of quiet energy. Grav cannons hummed with power, energy lassos sparkled in the fading light, and the townsfolk moved with purpose, their fear replaced with determination. Jace and Kayla made a final sweep, checking rooftops and alleyways for weak points. "Tomorrow, it all begins," Kayla said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "They'll come with everything they've got." Jace nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "Then we better be ready. No mistakes. No mercy." As darkness fell, the first hints of the Razor Comet gang appeared. Tiny glimmers in the distance, barely visible against the black sky, hovered just above the crater rim. They were scouts, moving silently, observing, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Kayla's hand rested on her hoversteed's control. "They'll be testing us tonight. Small attacks, probes. Don't let them break the town's spirit." Jace tightened his grip on his blaster. "I won't. Not tonight. Not ever." The night was long, filled with quiet tension. Occasionally, a grab bolt would streak across the sky, fired by Kayla to intercept a scout drone. The townsfolk stayed alert, peeking from behind barricades and firing only when necessary. Through it all, Jace remained vigilant, moving silently through the streets, keeping watch. The wind howled around him, carrying the faint sounds of distant movement. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every sound could signal the Marauders' approach. And yet, amid the tension, there was a spark of hope. Red Spire Outpost, small and seemingly insignificant, was ready to fight. And Jace, for the first time in years, wasn't alone in facing the darkness. When the first hints of starlight began to appear in the sky again, signaling the approach of dawn, Jace and Kayla met in the center of the square. The town lay quiet for the moment, prepared but still tense, like a coiled spring. "You did good today," Kayla said, her voice soft but firm. "The townsfolk trust you. They trust us. That's more than most can say." Jace allowed himself a small smile. "They better. Or I'm not going to have a town to defend tomorrow." Kayla chuckled softly, a rare sound that carried warmth in the cold night. "Tomorrow will be hard. But together we might just make it through." As they stood there, watching the twin suns rise once more over the craters, Jace realized something he hadn't admitted in a long time. He was no longer alone, and for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this Christmas would be different. The Razor Comet gang was out there, waiting. But so was Red Spire Outpost. And so were Jace Callahan and Kayla, the unlikely pair ready to defend it with everything they had. The snow sparkled, the town held its breath, and the horizon promised a battle that would test courage, loyalty, and the strength of unexpected friendships. And somewhere deep in the heart of the cold asteroid, Jace whispered again, quietly, almost to himself, "Maybe this Christmas, my wish is coming true." The night sky over Red Spire Outpost was black and endless, dotted with stars that twinkled coldly in the distance. The twin suns had long set, leaving the town under a pale glow of moonlight and the occasional flicker of neon signs. Jace Callahan stood atop a ridge overlooking the main square, his coat flapping in the icy wind, fingers tightening around the grip of his blaster. Beside him, Kayla hovered lightly on her silver steed, her armor catching the faint light like a shard of crystal. Her eyes scanned the distant craters, sharp and unyielding. The Razor Comet gang was out there, hidden among the jagged rocks and crater shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "They're close," Kayla said, her voice steady but tense. "I can feel it. Scouts are moving in. They're testing us." Jace nodded. "Then we hit them first. Don't let them get comfortable." The townsfolk were already in position, gripping grav cannons, energy lassos, and improvised weapons. From the rooftops, farmers and traders aimed carefully, ready to defend their homes. Despite their fear, determination burned in their eyes. Red Spire Outpost may have been small, but tonight it would fight like a giant. A faint shimmer appeared in the distance. Scout ships, sleek and black, skimmed just above the crater rim. The Razor Comet gang had begun their test attack. "Here they come," Jace muttered. Kayla activated her wrist console, sending pulses that scrambled the scout sensors. One drone wobbled violently before crashing into the snow with a quiet thud. Another streaked toward the town square, only to be intercepted by a grav cannon mounted on a rooftop. Sparks flew as it detonated harmlessly in midair. The first clash was brief, almost teasing, but it set the stage for the chaos to come. The Razor Comet gang was patient. They wanted to see the town's strength, its weaknesses. Jace and Kayla could feel the tension, each heartbeat echoing in the silence between attacks. "This is it," Kayla said. "The real strike comes soon. Hold your ground." Minutes later, the sky erupted. Grav bolts and plasma beams streaked across the dark expanse, illuminating the snow in bursts of red and blue. The Razor Comet gang descended from the craters in their hovercrafts, sleek black machines armed with cannons and cutting lasers. Their leader, a tall figure in dark armor, rode the largest craft, a ship with blades like comet tails spinning along its sides. Jace felt his pulse quicken. The sight was terrifying, yet exhilarating. For years he had lived for moments like this, moments where courage and skill determined survival. "Move!" he shouted, firing his blaster at a ship trying to swoop low into the square. Sparks flew as the shot hit the hull, forcing the craft to veer off course. Kayla raced alongside him on her hover steed, energy lances crackling as she struck down another ship. Her movements were precise, almost like a dance, each attack calculated and deadly. The townsfolk fought bravely, dodging plasma bursts and firing back with everything they had. Jace could hear shouts, the hiss of energy weapons, and the crunch of snow under feet and hooves. Fear was there, yes, but so was resolve. In the midst of the chaos, Jace spotted the gang leader descending toward the ridge. He was fast, aggressive, and skilled. Jace knew that if the leader reached the town square, destruction would follow. "Kayla," he called, "I'll handle him." "Cover the town!" Kyla's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Jace. Don't underestimate him." With a nod, Jace raced down the ridge, grav bike skimming low over the snow. The gang leader's hovercraft clashed with his bike in a blur of sparks and energy. They circled each other, testing defenses, dodging attacks. "You think a town like this can stop us?" The leader sneered, voice amplified through the ship's speakers. "We don't just fight for survival," Jace replied, firing a shot that forced the leader to veer. "We fight for home." Meanwhile, Kayla directed townsfolk to the most vulnerable points. She moved like a guardian, appearing wherever a hovercraft threatened, her energy lances cutting down attackers with precision. One of the marauders swooped close to the bakery roof, where an older miner struggled with a grav cannon. Kayla leapt from her steed, landing gracefully beside him. Aim for the engines, she instructed, not the hull, or we risk debris hitting the town. The miner nodded, and the shot struck perfectly, sending the craft spinning harmlessly into the snow. Kayla's smile was brief but satisfied. Back in the ridge, Jace and the gang leader clashed again. Sparks flew as blasters met, hovercraft skimming dangerously close to the ground. The fight was intense, each move a matter of life and death. Jace ducked under a plasma slash, rolled across the snow, and fired a well-aimed shot that grazed the leader's shoulder. The gang leader hissed in anger, then lunged with his ship, forcing Jace to jump aside at the last second. They collided near the town square, sending a shower of sparks and snow into the air. Jace's heart raced, but he couldn't afford to falter. "Jace!" Kayla shouted. She had spotted a group of marauders attempting to flank the town's southern edge. "We need to push them back." He gave a quick nod, knowing that the town's safety depended on him. Using the ridge for cover, he fired several well-placed shots, taking down the marauders one by one. Their hovercrafts faltered under the combined fire of Jace, Kayla, and the town's defenders. The gang leader, realizing his advantage slipping, attempted a desperate maneuver. He swooped down low, trying to intimidate the townsfolk into surrendering. But Kayla met him mid-air, her silver steed spinning with a burst of energy that collided with the hovercraft. Sparks flew, and the craft veered off, crashing into the crater's edge. Jace landed beside her, breathing heavily. "Nice move," he said, offering a rare smile. Kayla's eyes softened briefly, the adrenaline of battle still glowing in her gaze. "You weren't so bad yourself," she said. The remaining marauders, seeing their leader defeated, began to retreat. Grav cannons fired in precise bursts, cutting off escape routes. Townsfolk cheered quietly, their courage rewarded as the enemy slipped back into the shadows of the craters. Red Spar Outpost lay battered but standing. Snow drifted over broken pieces of grav cannons and scorch marks on the streets. The town's defenders were exhausted, hands trembling, breath visible in the cold night. Yet a sense of pride and relief filled the air.
They had survived. They had won.
Kayla dismounted, walking beside Jace. "You did well," she said. "The town owes you its thanks, and so do I." Jace shook his head, looking at the town's quiet streets. "They did it themselves. I just helped a little." You were incredible out there." Kayla smiled faintly, brushing snow from her armor. "We made it. The marauders won't give up so easily. They'll come back." Jace's jaw tightened. "Then we'll be ready. They won't take this town from us. Not while I'm alive." The night settled over Red Spire Outpost, broken only by the distant echoes of retreating hovercrafts. The town, scarred but unbroken, began to feel the warmth of victory. The townsfolk moved among the streets, checking each other for injuries, sharing quiet words of thanks and encouragement. For the first time that season, Jace felt a flicker of hope beyond the adrenaline of battle. He had spent so many Christmases alone, wishing for something more, something real. And tonight, fighting beside Kayla, he felt that maybe, just maybe, that wish was coming true. Kayla looked at him, her silver eyes catching the moonlight. "You know," she said softly, "there's more than one way to survive out here. And more than one way to find what you're looking for." Jace glanced at her, a quiet understanding passing between them. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future not defined by loneliness or danger, but by trust, partnership, and the faintest glimmer of joy. The Razor Comet gang had struck. The town had fought back. And somewhere in the cold, starlit night, a Christmas wish, long whispered and long hoped for, felt a little closer to coming true. As the stars sparkled overhead and the first hints of dawn began to lighten the horizon, Jace and Kayla stood together in the center of Red Spire Outpost, grav bikes parked, energy weapons sparking softly in the cold, the town alive with cautious celebration. They had survived the first night of the Marauders' attack. But both knew this victory was only temporary. The battle was far from over. And yet, despite the exhaustion, the danger, and the looming threat of what was to come, hope burned brighter than the twin suns above. Tonight, Red Spire Outpost had been tested. Tonight, Jace and Kayla had stood together. And tonight, a wish whispered to the stars felt just a little closer to being real. Morning broke over Red Spire Outpost, the twin suns casting a warm golden glow across the snow-covered streets. The town, battered but unbroken, lay quiet for the first time in days. Grav bikes rested near barricades, energy lassos and grav cannons cooled after their furious night of battle. The townsfolk emerged from their homes slowly, stretching stiff muscles and blinking against the pale sunlight, still trying to process what had just happened. Jace Callahan stood in the middle of the square, boots crunching in the fresh snow. He looked over the town, scanning rooftops, alleyways, and the distant craters where the Razor Comet gang had retreated. Their threat was not gone, but for now, the town was safe. Kayla hovered beside him on her silver steed, her armor reflecting the sunlight like scattered diamonds. She had not slept much, but her posture was calm, her eyes steady. "You did good," she said softly. "The town survived because of your leadership. We did it together. You helped more than anyone. And those townsfolk, they're stronger than I gave them credit for. They found courage because they had someone to show them the way, and you were that someone." The air was crisp, quiet, and filled with the faint sound of snow crunching under boots. For years, Jace had been alone. Every Christmas had been the same, cold, lonely, and silent, broken only by memories of the past. But standing here watching the sunrise with Kayla beside him, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. The town began to stir with celebration. Fires were lit in the main square, filling the air with warmth and the comforting smell of roasted protein. Children played in the snow, their laughter piercing the quiet tension that had hung over the town like a shadow. Merchants opened their shops, greeting neighbors with cautious smiles. Even the older miners, who had faced danger with grim faces, allowed themselves a small moment of relief. Jace watched them, feeling a strange mixture of pride and exhaustion. He had spent years wandering, fighting for survival, carrying the weight of his past. But now, for the first time, he saw a future worth protecting, not just for himself, but for the town and for Kayla. "Jace," Kayla said, drawing his attention. She had landed on the snow and removed her helmet, letting her dark hair streaked with silver fall freely. "There's something I need to tell you. What is it?" "I am a star emissary," she said. "I come from beyond this system. My mission was to protect my people from the Razor Comet gang. But I don't have to leave now. Not if I don't want to." Jace blinked. "You mean you're choosing to stay?" Kyla nodded. "Yes, this town, this fight, it matters. And I want to be here, with people who care, with someone who understands the cost of fighting for survival." Jace's chest tightened. For years, he had whispered a Christmas wish to the stars, hoping for companionship, understanding, maybe even love. He had never dared to hope it would be answered, not like this. "Kayla," he began, unsure if words could capture what he felt. I've been alone too long. I didn't think anyone could understand what it's like out here." "You're not alone anymore," Kyla said softly, her eyes locking onto his. "Not while I'm here." Jace felt a smile tug at his lips, genuine and rare. He reached out, and Kayla took his hand. For the first time in years, the weight of loneliness lifted slightly, replaced by something bright, warm, and alive. The town began preparing for a Christmas celebration, determined to reclaim joy even after the terror of the Marauders' attack. Lights were hung across the streets, flickering in the soft sunlight. Small hollow sparks danced in the snow, casting tiny rainbows in the crisp morning air. Jace and Kayla moved through the town, helping wherever they could, laughing quietly with townsfolk, sharing stories, and even teaching children how to fire a grav cannon safely. The sun climbed higher, painting red spire in golden light. Jace could see smoke rising from the bakery chimneys, hear the faint sound of music played on old instruments brought out for the occasion, and smell the comforting aroma of baked goods mixed with roasted protein. The town had survived, fought, and now it celebrated. Kayla watched the scene with a quiet smile. "This is what I was fighting for," she said. "Not just survival, but life, and joy, and hope." Jace nodded. "I fought a lot of battles, seen a lot of towns burn, lost a lot of people. But this feels different. This is worth fighting for." The townsfolk gathered in the square, forming a circle around a small, makeshift tree decorated with hollow sparks and simple ornaments. Children placed hand-drawn stars on the branches, and elders nodded approvingly. Jace and Kayla stood at the edge, watching the scene unfold, hearts lighter than they had been in years. Then a faint hum echoed across the snow. Jace and Kayla's eyes rose to the horizon. Small figures appeared, cautiously emerging from the crater edges, the remaining marauders. Their weapons were still dangerous, their intent clear, but their confidence had been shaken. They approached slowly, unwilling to risk another direct attack. Kayla stepped forward, energy lances sparking faintly in her hands. Jace moved beside her, blaster ready, but instead of an attack, the marauders paused, hesitant under the combined courage of the townsfolk and the strength of the two defenders. Jace raised his voice. "Leave now. Never return, Red Spire Outpost is defended, and anyone who harms it will answer to us. The marauders exchanged nervous glances. Finally, their leader raised a hand in a gesture of surrender. Slowly, they retreated, disappearing into the craters as silently as they had arrived. A cheer rose from the townsfolk, muffled at first by disbelief, then growing loud as hope and relief washed over them. They had survived. They had won. And for the first time in many long seasons, Red Spire Outpost felt truly safe. Jace lowered his blaster, breathing deeply. Kayla stood beside him, a quiet pride in her eyes. "They won't forget this," she said, "and neither will we." Jace's gaze drifted to the twin suns rising higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the snow. He thought of the years spent wishing, hoping, and waiting. And now, standing beside Kayla, seeing the town alive with warmth and joy, he realized his Christmas wish had finally come true. Kayla reached out, brushing snow from his coat. "Merry Christmas, Jace." He looked at her, feeling the warmth of the moment, the hope in her eyes, and the bond that had grown between them. "Merry Christmas, Kayla," he replied softly. The town celebrated late into the day, sharing food, stories, laughter, and songs. Children ran through the snow, laughing, their energy infectious. Adults told tales of courage and resilience, honoring those who had fought to protect the town. Grav bikes lined the streets, gleaming under the suns, while hollow sparks and lights danced across the buildings. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the snow in hues of gold and rose, Jace and Kayla stood together at the edge of the square. The quiet between them was comfortable, full of unspoken understanding. For the first time, Jace felt truly at peace. The battles of the past, the loneliness, the endless wandering, it all felt like it had led to this moment. Kayla leaned slightly against her hover steed, her silver armor glowing in the light. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes the universe answers wishes in ways we don't expect. We just have to recognize them when they come." Jace smiled, feeling a lightness he hadn't known in years. "I think I finally recognize mine." Together they watched as the town of Red Spire Outpost glowed under the twin suns, snow sparkling, laughter filling the air, and hope blazing brighter than any weapon or armor. This Christmas, Jace's wish had come true, not just for safety, not just for survival, but for connection, trust, and the possibility of something more. And somewhere deep in the asteroid's quiet craters, the Razor Comet gang knew they had been bested. Red Spire Outpost had not only survived, they had thrived, defended by courage, friendship, and the kind of hope that even the coldest stars could not extinguish. Jace turned to Kayla, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in years. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "This place, this fight, it's ours now. Together." Kayla smiled, her hand brushing against his. "I wouldn't have it any other way." And as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the snow and rooftops, Red Spire Outpost celebrated its first true Christmas in years. Grab bikes rested, weapons cooled, laughter rang out, and for the first time in a long time, a cowboy's Christmas wish had come true. The stars above twinkled in silent approval. The town stood resilient and alive, and the promise of a new beginning glimmered bright under the twin suns.